stand, it being 5 o'clock, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. This evening, it is not on the piece of paper, but it has been appropriately advertised. We need to do a public hearing for finalization of the COVID grant. Krista, we need to actually amend the agenda since we have started our meeting.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Can we please have a motion to amend the agenda? Tara Hagan from ARA is here with us this evening to do the advertised public hearing on the finalization.
Make the motion.
Made by Jamie. Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. King. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Now, we will proceed to the public hearing. Tara, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I do have a sign-in sheet that's going around and that's circulating. If everyone can sign that, I'd appreciate it. The City of Greensburg is holding this public hearing to provide citizens an opportunity to express their views on the COVID-19 immediate response funds that were received from the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs through the State Community Development Block Grant Program. The city was awarded $250,000 on April 22nd and provided business grants for small businesses impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The purpose of the funding was to retain jobs for persons of low to moderate income in Decatur County. The city expended $6,250 in non-CDBG funds on the project from the city's EDIT funds. The city distributed the full $250,000 to 37 businesses with an aggregated beneficiary count of 124 individuals, which calculated to be over 59% for low to moderate income persons. So interested citizens are invited to provide comments regarding this project, either by written comments that they could have sent to ARA, which we received no comments. But are there any comments here today?
Did you receive any, Kristen? Okay. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this project and grant? If not,
No? Well, that concludes our public hearing.
okay.
Thank you.
Take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Jamie, seconded by Glenn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much for all the help. Have a good evening.
Two.
Okay, we will now move on to our regular meeting. Today is Monday, October 5th, 2020. Time being 5 p.m. The meeting of the Greensburg Board of Works is called to order. This time, please silence electronic devices. To comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the city requests that participants in this meeting complete a voluntary anonymous survey that's available on the table in the back of the room. Brendan Ringer is not with us this evening, so we have Betsy Wiley, her deputy. Will you please call the roll?
Jamie Kane,
Here.
Rodney King,
Here.
Lynn Tabby,
Here.
Karen D. Rust. Here.
Okay, you should have all received a copy of the September 8th meeting minutes in your packet. Any corrections, additions? If not, we'll take a motion to approve those.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Jamie, seconded by Glenn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained. Dr. King was not here last meeting. There being no old business, we will go straight to new business. We have Chief Bridges and Chief Stoermer who are going to combine their 2 bullet points into one presentation on the wellness policies that they already have and or expanding at their respective departments. Good evening, guys. Good evening.
Good evening. The fire chief and I sat down a couple months ago and talking a little bit about physical and mental health with both agencies. Currently, the fire department already has standards set up for a physical agility exam every single year. That's one thing the police department has not had. In the packet that I provided with you about a month ago, it kind of goes through on what we are looking at doing as far as our physical agility tests that every officer will have to go through. We're looking at either once or twice a year, and it has it broken down on exactly what our officers would have to exactly do. Again, fire departments is a little bit different than ours. I'm not going to bore you with all the legal issues and everything, but at one time when law enforcement agencies were trying to go put these into effect, When they were setting stuff up for like the push-ups, sit-ups and all that, a lot of officers were kind of complaining, at what point in time during our duty are we actually gonna get down and start doing push-ups? So we made a physical agility course that will actually go along with certain things that we will have to do in the line of duty, and officers will be in full gear to take part in that. And again, we have a committee set up to where they will go out and kind of go over the course, see what the time needs to be, and we will begin that in 2021 if approved by the Board of Works. Again, the proposal of the policy you guys have. The other thing that we have been trying to, or I've been trying to get to where we can get some type of help for officers, and that is a type of mental health program also, and that unfortunately it's kind of hard to balance what we need to do with both that and the physical agility. I've been working with the chief of police out of Frankfort, Kentucky. They have one of the leading programs in the United States for mental health. Again, we've unfortunately had a past where an officer's committed suicide, and that's one thing to where, as an administrator, I want to make sure my officers are mentally prepared every time they're coming into work. This policy will be set up on a points system to where if you go and see a psychologist, you'll get so many points. If you pass the physical agility test, you'll get so many points. And if you maintain a constant workout at the PD or at any of our gyms that are locally set up through the clerk's office, that will all be calculated. And again, you have to score 100 points to be part of the Fit for Duty test. If officers do not want to be part of the Fit for Duty test, they can opt out, but they still have to take the physical agility. One thing we all kind of know as we all talk is sometimes people don't want to admit when they maybe need to go and talk to somebody. So I'm going to be kind of the scapegoat on this, to where with this incentive, I'm hoping officers will take advantage to pretty much tell the other guys, hey, listen, to get my stipend or my reward, the chief's making me go and talk to somebody. So once they get their foot in the door, again, it's only going to be required once a year, but they might decide that they actually want to go more. Through this, the city, which has been budgeted for 2021 in our budget, would pick up the cost of the first physician or the first mental health checkup, and of course our yearly physical that will also be recommended is picked up through our insurance costs, so that's already taken care of. Anything after the first visit, it will be up for the officer to take care of out of pocket. We are going to make sure that the mental health people that we are seeing are in our network. Nothing against our insurance company. We have a great insurance company and we have great sources through that. But I think the fire chief can attest, public safety, the officers and firefighters, they want to talk to somebody that's done the job. And it has actually been through this, not just a normal citizen that talks. So we do have prepared a couple of people that will probably be in network. One is definitely in network, and they will actually be able to go to those. But again, they'll be talking to somebody that can relate in what their field is doing as far as PTSD and everything else. One study I saw where 22 veterans a day are committing suicide, and we hire, the fire department hires military, so that's one thing where if we do hire them on, they will have that help if needed. I think a study that I saw was firefighters usually have a higher tendency of heart attacks in their 40s, I think about 45, more than any other job occupation, and law enforcement is known for deprived of sleep, which can cause, again, other breakdowns on the job. So, like I said, I would like for this program to be passed through the Board of Works and City Council. Again, there's not too many law enforcement agencies in our state that offer both the physical and the mental part, and I think it would be actually really good that Greensburg could possibly set that standard, and we could actually be a catalyst for that. Not taken away from any other employees. I think in the future, one thing that I think about any company is going to have to realize is making sure that every employee has mental health available to them. So like I said, that's my part. Fire chief is a lot more knowledgeable on the mental health stuff. He studies it and all that. So I will let him add anything to his, and then once everything's done, if you have any questions on my policy and that, feel free to ask.
So in the fire department, we looked at, the city historically has always paid for the per physical that is a requirement of the firefighters union, or the firefighters perf Indiana 77. So every year we do 12 lead EKG if they're over 40, blood work, as well as a general health and safety physical. That's also awarded to any new person that comes on there. So those funds are already budgeted. This year we brought in a nutritionist to talk about what some of their lab values were. We had some firefighters with some high cholesterol and some high other enzymes. So I brought in a nutritionist to talk about good food and try to get rid of the junk food and try to get some healthier food options in there, especially in the firehouse when they're working and things like that. We also brought in a licensed clinical social worker outside of Indianapolis who works with the Indianapolis Fire Department. She was vetted by me, and why me? As the lead of the organization, I know what the guys are going to listen to and they're not, as well as I'm a suicide attempt survivor myself. So I've lived it and I've walked in those shoes, so I know exactly what we need. As well as Chief mentioned, I do study it and I've done quite a bit of research and published a few papers on firefighter mental health and wellness about that. So we're both in agreement that we need something a little more special than the general population, and we'll be working with Dunn and Associates to make sure we get those individuals in our network if they're not already. With that, we do physical assessments. We do them twice yearly. My health and safety committee came up with a physical assessment out of, it was actually started in Fort Worth, Texas. It does include sit-ups, push-ups, treadmill, things like that, but it's able to be done in workout attire. There's levels for that. There's levels 1 through 5, and they are given a level. If they fall below level 3, if they're a level 1 or 2, then that next month, actually in November, they will then complete a firefighter skills test. Basically, will closely mimic Chief Bridges' police test, and they will do it in fire gear and they will do fire-related things. Some of our guys are better fit for doing that than they are the more traditional exercises, where some of our guys are more apt to do the traditional exercises and do well in that because of their build than the firefighting skills. So this takes in both body styles and gives everybody a fair chance at doing this. It is mandatory for everybody on my department, and what Chief and I are looking at and what I will ask for is that we are allowed to stipend them the year after successful completion of, for my department it would be a level 4 or a level 5, and I believe for Chief it's over 100 points, correct? That we would stipend that individual $600. Basically that would be half of their insurance reimbursed because they're taking the proper steps to maintain not only their physical health but also their mental health as well, which hopefully means we're going to keep them as an employee longer. We're not going to have to bury any employees because I don't believe that any of us, especially the Chief of Police and I, want to attend one of our own guys' funerals or gals' funerals. That's just not something we want to do, whether it's for a heart attack, whether it's for suicide or anything else. We don't want to bury any of our own. So as a reward for that, they would be they would be allowed to get that stipend as a show of good job. And not everybody would get it because the majority of my department lands in a level 3. But those that are level 4 and level 5 are truly excelling in the physical fitness aspect and doing the right things. And it would be nice to reward them and make sure that we know that they're, we're going to reward them for taking care of themselves. Because for some, just the diet and eating thing is a big change. Another one is working out. And this year we just introduced it, and we've seen an improvement from 6 months ago. Guys coming down 20, 30 pounds and being able to step up from a level. One of our gentlemen came from a level 1 all the way to a level 3. So it is working. There's a lot of dragging feet and resistance because it is change. And it's change in physical fitness, so it's two things that they really don't necessarily like all that well. But we are making a positive improvement in that.
one other thing I forgot is, another reason why I would love to see the mental health aspect go through is recently there was a bill that was passed in the state of Indiana to where if an officer or firefighter is considered not fit for duty due to mental health, then they could be possibly subject to more reviews in front of a board through the state that sets up through PERF, and it can lag on for a year or two, and decisions in that. So my goal is that I will never have to send somebody in for a psych eval, because we're trying to take care of the problem before it gets that far. So that's kind of my spiel in that. Yes, sir.
I'd like to compliment the two of you gentlemen on having the foresight to do this. And it's good to see that we're going to be the leader, if this is approved, that we're going to be the leader. And having carried the badge for 4 or 5 years, I saw the things that you talked about. I witnessed it. It's not fun. There's a great deal of stress and pressure in both professions. And anything that we can do to help our ladies and gentlemen is going to make our fire department better. It's going to make our community better. You can't ask for more than that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. For the fire specifically, what happens if they fail both of those suspensions?
If they fail both of those tests, they're placed on modified duty for 1 month. And currently, we are, I've got 2 individuals right now going through NASM's peer fitness training class, and we'll actually have certified peer fitness trainers on the department. They will work with them, and then if it's a diet issue, we'll bring in the nutritionist, or if it's a mental health issue, if they use eating as a coping mechanism, as an unhealthy coping mechanism, and they turn to food, we will involve all 3 of them to try to get them to where they need to be. But they will be removed from operational duty. They will be basically on a modified duty, so they will be doing paperwork, they will be entering run reports, they will be doing that kind of stuff, but they will not be actually making calls on the truck, which is a pretty significant thing for a lot of those guys, because that's what they live for. So that's kind of what we remove from them, to give them a little bit of an incentive to get right with that.
Is that spelled out in the policy?
That, I don't know if it's spelled out in that one. It is spelled out. It might be in my physical fitness policy. I was pulling these together, so I can get a copy of that. Because that is kind of how we, because if there's no teeth to it, then there's no sense in having a program at all. So this was the least invasive type of thing to kind of send that message without just saying, because most of these people just need some motivation. They don't need to necessarily be, punished or, put on light duty or suspended. The city handbook allows for suspension of 3 to 5 days for being unfit for duty. To me, that's not gonna do anything, because that's like suspending a kid that doesn't wanna go to school. You're just giving them what they want. So we're not gonna do that. We're gonna make them work for that, and we're gonna set up improvement plans. And I've had one employee already go through this, and we put them on an improvement plan, and they've actually lost over about 70 pounds since we started this. So it was a good motivation and a good driver to do that. I would get that documentation.
Okay, it should be documented somewhere.
Yes.
And then secondly, how many chances do they get to pass it? How many months do they?
So
go?
the physical agilities are done in March, and then like September or October of every year, and then so that following, so they can, the first one is basically they're where they at. If they get a level 2 on that one, then they have 6 months to improve. Then in October, they do the same one, and if they don't get it this time, then they have to do the firefighter physical agility skills. So they kind of go to that 3rd test. And the incentive for those that score level 3 and higher currently is that they don't have to do another test, because this one does win them fairly decently for half a day or so.
And then the last thing, a comment. It looks like you mentioned in here twice the financial.
Is it mentioned twice?
reward. Well, the first time it's a little more general, and it just says they're gonna be compensated. And then the second one is more specific. It says it eligible for a partial insurance reimbursement.
Right, and that's like still in draft form, but that was added after Chief Bridges and I. We wanted to make sure that if we do get some type of reimbursement or some type of reward for them, that it's same across the board. So it would say the police department and the fire department both are doing, we might have our own separate programs, but they're covering the same topics, and then the reward is both the same. So it's not, you know, the cops get $1,000 and firefighters get 600 or vice versa. We wanted to make it fair across the board, so when our guys all get together and talk about us and, you know, who's doing better or what, then they're gonna come up with the same amount, the same number.
It was just a comment to maybe you could revise it, so.
Absolutely, yeah, like I said, it was drafted, I wasn't sure if we had put it in there before, so I spelled it out specifically in its own subsection.
I had a question for Chief Bridges. I think I forgot.
Maybe just to follow up on Dee's question on, so if they get below a level 3 on their
Right.
first test, then they get below a level 3 on their second test, then they do their agilities,
Yes.
and they fail that,
Yes. Then
how often do they have to retest?
So they would have a month to get that better,
Right?
and then they would have to retest after that month,
So if they fail again,
then they would be suspended.
okay, but then when we brought them back, would we still keep them on modified duty?
If they bring them back and they pass the test, no. I mean, we're not gonna.
So
the
you're
goal
gonna
is-
suspend them until they can pass the
Yes.
test? Is it, okay, that's the question I guess I was trying to get at.
Yes.
Okay,
If it comes to suspension, then when they come back, they will be ready for duty.
okay.
And that would be full duty.
Okay. And then, I guess I'm just trying to get an appreciation of how, you know, if we put this in place, you know, how many people are we thinking between the police department and fire department? None of this is put in the budget, right? So this is additional money that we didn't budget for. We're already strapped on where we're at on a budget for next year, and that's why I'm just asking. I like the idea, but I'm just wondering where the money's coming from to pay for it as well.
We have some money in our budget. Obviously, I'm looking at about 5 individuals out of the 30 that are on the fire department. I have a very small number that can hit that level, and that's why we did not include the level 3s, because then we're looking at 75% of the department. So obviously, we looked at this. Chief Bridges and I think we both appreciated it. Was talking with the mayor. We looked at this as the least financial impact possible, while still, you know, rewarding back.
There wouldn't be anything needed to be budgeted until 2022 because they have all of 2021 to qualify. So that the 2022 budget could.
This was just put in place for 2021.
Right.
And then they would have to meet this in 2021 and then reimburse or reward.
If you successfully passed in 21, then in 22, when the budget was approved, then you would get your money for 21. So it would actually work with you, because that way you have your test scores in. Chief has time to tally all his points up to make sure that they are, you know, appreciable for them.
I remember that question. So for the police, you have these 2 programs, you have the fit for duty or the agility. So if they do the fit for duty, they don't have to do the agility?
No, if they want to do the fit for duty on January 1, they have to say, we want to do fit for duty. At that point in time, starts their point scoring on working out so many times a month and going through the mental health process and then going through the physical agility. If you don't want to participate in that, you still have to go through the fit for duty as far as the physical agility. Everybody's going to go through that.
What's the incentive for someone to participate in the fit for duty program?
It would be
That's the
the,
incentive, the 6 months.
The other one doesn't qualify for, the other is just a mandatory
and
requirement for.
we are sending 2 guys to the Cooper Institute, kind of like the fire department, other than he uses a different company. We use Cooper, or we're going to use Cooper. We're going to send our guys through to where they can be certified nutritionists and physical fitness. So.
We have a wellness program already in place that rewards any employee who attends a fitness facility so many times per quarter. They can get a certain dollar amount if not their entire membership reimbursed. So that's not uncommon.
Well, I agree that I think, I'm pleased to see that you're trying to do something about the physical as well as mental health of both professions. I have a couple of questions, and some of it might just be editorial. And I understand it's a draft, but I'm glad you said that, because there's some things in here that need to be a little bit, more polished, with regard to, making it, public kind of thing. In the fire department, you mentioned that, after 30 days of fire skills, and if fire passes test will return to over duty. If it does not pass, progressive discipline will take place. Now, that was a little different than what I thought you told Jamie just a minute ago about,
How so?
well, maybe I clarify that.
I'm using the progressive discipline that is in the handbook.
Okay.
In the fire department handbook, the definition of progressive discipline is
Okay,
in there.
fine.
So that is what we're.
That's what you're referencing.
That is what we're referencing in there, yes.
Okay, very good. And it's that there's only a couple places in here where I just think to be consistent, we need to make a editorial change.
Sure.
Not policy wise, just
Sure.
cleaning up the
You can
language.
use your red pen and then give me a copy. I can make those happen.
I can do that.
All right.
Brandon, again, appreciate the extent to which you've given the detail here. But again, this is somewhat of a editorial thing, but, so is the mandatory physical fitness standards the same as in B? It's what I hear tonight is the same as the officers must elect to participate in the required annual physical agility. Is that the same? In the first one, it says physical fitness strengths, and so it's physical fitness standards, and then in B it says physical agility. So it's a question. We just need to have some common language here so we're not getting confused.
Yeah, I can take either out because that
Well,
is
I don't know if
correct.
you either, you just gotta have some consistent language, wherever you want. And the same thing is an F, a mandatory fitness test. So, what you see what I'm saying, what I'm going to, we need to get some consistency in the language, at least I think we do, from the standpoint, otherwise, and maybe you're man and you all understand it, but, just reading it. And then you reference here OITC. I don't know what an OITC is. And I don't remember now exactly where, yeah, number G, it says, who wish to participate shall submit a written request to the Department of Physical Fitness OIC.
Officer in charge.
Okay, and maybe that's just the standard, it could be the standard one, that's fine, but that you all understand that. We pay for the physical facility, as you said, so we're either paying for it or reimbursing people for it, is that right?
On our standard fitness,
Our wellness program, we reimburse them if they use it so many times.
And here though, we're paying for it, right? Or it's the same thing, they're being reimbursed?
Yeah, if they decide to go outside of the PD and to like YMCA, Anytime Fitness, or the other one, I can't think of Reclaim, they can be reimbursed from that. But we have a facility at the PD set up to where our officers should be able to come into the PD if they elect to, and
if they
work
go
out
the
that.
other way,
Yeah.
okay. In the physical fitness facility you're talking about is primarily the PD.
Yes.
So maybe some clarifications of this in terms of sitting down and trying to get some standard language. And maybe it's just me, in terms of, I'm not aware of the lingo that the police officers and you all use and understand just automatically.
No problem, I can definitely go back through and, like I said, I wasn't looking for this one, we still have time to get this through, so I will go back and make some updates on mine and bring it back in front of you guys next month, if that's okay.
That would be, I think, better.
And that's fine, yeah, and if you can get the changes. I think this month, we really wanted to plant the seed while Chief and I had talked about it and kind of not necessarily solidified the plan, but at least had the idea and while we had some traction, to at least present it to open discussions with not only the Board of Works, but also the City Council just to see where we're at, to see what we can do, potentially to make this work. If we can get everybody on board and a stakeholder now, it'll be a lot easier to get it through later.
Certainly approve the concept,
Thank you.
but I would just assume we come back with clean things and we can, we're all on the same page that way, is that?
Absolutely, for sure.
You got a motion to table this
I
until
would
next month?
move that we table the Greensburg Police Department wellness policy and the Greensburg Fire Department wellness policy, please start license.
Second.
Motion's been made by Glenn, seconded by Jamie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
And just real quick, I passed out the community survey, and that goes along with the strategic plan that I put out a couple months ago. I do have to do some reformatting because the letters are way too big, so that's what that is.
Thank you. Thank you. Superintendent Smith. Good evening.
Good evening. You should have received copies of quotes for a pickup, half-ton, four-wheel drive. Pretty basic, not a whole lot of extras on it. I got 3 new quotes and then a quote for a used vehicle also. The new, actually new is cheaper than the used truck because of the, getting off a good city discounts. So, government discount. I need to replace my 2008 Ranger. The timing belt snapped on it. It's got a 4-cylinder engine. It drops the valves right down top of the pistons, so I had no compression. He said, more than likely the engine's just totally shot because of the way that goes. So he's still looking at that, but I'd like to replace it. And probably the rest of the truck's in good shape. I may sell it as is if somebody wants to buy it later on. A new truck will take 10 to 14 weeks to buy, to get here, just because of COVID-19 zones are backed up. So I would like to purchase the Ram 1500 for $21,795. I believe that is the cheapest of the used.
So that is the cheapest, although the one here says that there is a vehicle currently available.
Well, I can get a 2019.
Is that what this one is?
Yeah, but it's a used one.
Oh, it's the used one, okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
see. No, well,
It's cheaper to buy a new one than it is to buy a used.
you can get by for,
We'll get by.
2 months?
Yeah, I got a couple guys like to go out deer hunting, so that's why I want to be here next. If they split up, one guy goes 1 week, the other goes the next, so they probably won't be here the next month, so yeah, we'll get by.
So the Dodge truck is a new one, it's a
Yeah.
21.
That's a 20.
Does it have everything that you need?
Then, yeah, it's a 4-wheel drive, and it has a hitch package on it, got air conditioning, and basically that's what we purchased, we don't purchase everything too big.
Okay,
We're trying hard on pickups.
but that would satisfy your
That'll
needs?
satisfy us to the fiscal need.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, we'll take a motion to approve purchase of the Dodge pickup truck for the superintendent to wastewater.
I'll make the motion to purchase the 2021 Tradesman 1500 regular cab 4x4. Price at $21,795.
Specific enough. Is there a second?
second.
Made by Rodney, seconded by Glenn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much. City Engineer Ron May, I'll take it way up here to explain what we're talking about. This is something that's been apparently in the works for a very long time, and Ron and I have been working on it on the side over the last 9 months. So he's here to sort of give us an update on this and now we're
Follow on to what the mayor said. I've been with the city now a little over 5.5 years, and this was a topic 5.5 years ago. And the matter at hand is a proposal from Christopher Meeberg Engineering LLC to perform a rate study for a stormwater utility. Stormwater utilities are pretty common throughout the state. They come in different flavors a little bit, if you will, and with different rates. As we're probably all aware, we have areas of the community that have inadequate storm drainage. And we really have no resources to address those matters. And the older neighborhoods in the city are the worst ones because they grew up back in a time where nobody thought much about stormwater. Those areas tend to have no storm sewers, very few inlets, if any, and those problems are very difficult for us to address with the resources currently available. Concurrent with all of that is our wastewater department is working on modernizing sewers throughout the city, and part of that modernization process is to remove infiltration from the wastewater system because it costs us just as much to treat clean water as it does to treat black water. So as the wastewater department works to improve their situation, and rightfully so, it hurts the stormwater situation. So the purpose of the rate study is actually twofold. It's one, to investigate what kinds of rates we would consider imposing relative to what kind of revenue those rates would produce. And then the other part of that is to look at stormwater needs in the city that were not currently being met, and try and find that, if you will, sweet spot in the middle where those two numbers start to come together, where we look at what kind of rates we need to impose if we developed the utility, and therefore the revenue that we would generate and how we could spend that money, or where that money could go to help improve stormwater issues throughout the city. Just very briefly, typically these rates are established on something referred to as the equivalent residential unit. So we look at assessing let's say, a monthly fee to each residential property owner in the city, and then based on their average coverage of impermeable surface, which affects runoff from stormwater, we extend that coverage rate to commercial properties throughout the city that typically have a lot more coverage of impermeable surfaces, and come up with an equitable arrangement to assess fees for the commercial properties, industrial and business, and that sort of thing. So again, the purpose of this study is the first step, or the next step down this path, is see what we can do. I can share with you that because we are an MS4 community, the wastewater utility can pay the fee for this study. So the cash would not come directly from the city, but would come from the wastewater utility.
For the study itself, you're saying?
For the study itself. The idea being that if we go to the next few steps to implement the utility, that will then start to generate revenue that can pay its own way going forward.
We did talk to another
Yes.
company as well, and their fee structure and price was astronomically higher.
Their methodology was very similar to what's being proposed in this one, but their fee structure was
As I understand it, this also is going to give us the square footage, for lack of a better word, or roughly the area that is impermeable, that would then therefore be assessed if we do a assessment to help cover the rate of the stormwater, right?
Yes, what happens is you take a sampling of residential properties in the city, and you determine what percentage of the typical residential property is impermeable. Then you apply that ratio to commercial and industrial sites. And
Based on their area.
Based on their area and their impermeable areas. And so you find an equivalency. So let's take an example of Walmart, because they have a lot of pavement. So Walmart is of individual residential units.
Right.
And so if we charge a residential unit $1, then we charge Walmart X dollars.
Right.
And the dollar was just a made up thing.
Yeah, I understand that. And I guess it will get into that at some point. And so first off, yeah, I think we need to do a study. We've been around long enough that it's been a problem for a long period of time and causes us great problems from time to time. So I'm not opposed to doing the study. I guess I'd be interested to see how it comes out. And you talk about Walmart as one example, and I'm gonna have to go back there and look, but I think I'm right. I know other places do. So, when a number of those places were put in, developed, I should say, according, well, when I was on planning commission, at least, we made sure that we took some calculations of what runoff would be and how it would go and so we have retention ponds and so forth. So would there be appropriate, that be taken into consideration when we're looking at these kinds of things?
It is.
And this is probably a question on down the road, but I thought I might get it out there right now.
One of the things that other communities do is they have a credit system. So if Honda's kind of a good example because Honda had a master stormwater management plan back in '06 or whatever. Their runoff is very limited because they have a lot of ponds and they retain a lot of water or detain a lot of water. So the system can be built with some kind of a credit system so that many current residential developments have stormwater retention features. However, they're often owned by homeowners associations, and many of those homeowners associations have never formed and they have no resources. Not that I necessarily want to see the city take over the management of those facilities. I don't hardly see who else is going to. And there always comes a time in the life cycle of everything where something needs maintenance. So those are all things to be looked at in the process of organizing the utility.
Well, yeah, that's just a question I wanted to, thought that there ought to be something in that when they come back with it.
And because I know that everybody's curious about what rates we might be, I can't tell you what rates might be, but I can tell you in the state of Indiana, they start, I think, at the bottom end at $1.25 a month for equivalent residential unit, and they end at something, was it over $11? $18.75. So everything in between is out there. We actually have some data that's been assembled about what other communities are doing in this area.
Okay.
So I'm just a little confused on this topic. So is the runoff situation currently costing the city money?
The cost is unmet need. We do the least possible with our street system in terms of stormwater management. And I hate to say that, but it's kind of true. We just don't have the resources. Where someone has a drainage issue, let's say in their backyard, we do nothing for that. Is it our responsibility? I really don't know. But if we had a storm sewer system in that neighborhood, that property owner would have an opportunity to deal with this problem. Right now, there are situations where there's just no place to drain that water. And as the city has built out, maybe when that development occurred, they were on the edge of town, and maybe there's a cultivated field next door across the road or whatever, and that water could run over there and it became too big a deal. But then that cultivated field became another residential subdivision that maybe had enough stormwater features to take care of itself, and maybe not. So we just have areas, in particularly the old parts of the city, where they need storm sewers and that sort of thing. And we can take care of the city's situation, and we can offer property owners the opportunity to take care of their own once we give them an outlet.
Okay, so this will be putting in a plan for
water utility and our wastewater utility would be a revenue generating utility that would be used to, there will be some board that will oversee this, the utility board, something yet to be determined, but that board will manage those activities. Maybe it's you, I don't know, maybe it could be part of the board works. Maybe we can figure our water board into a true utility board with all the utility operations in one place.
This may be totally unrelated. I know of two issues that we have storm runoff problems. Okay? The corner of Main and Mumford. And the other is out by Needles when the road floods there. Will this provide monies to correct those two problems?
Possibly. However, the state of Indiana, because Main Street is a state highway, is working on a plan to reconstruct Main Street. And at the moment, it appears that plan will have stormwater improvements in it. So it may address those. Montfort, no, because this project won't go that far east.
How many years are we talking?
Probably a year
Or what was the
at
question?
the earliest to implement the utility. And then, depending on the rate and the rapidity with which we accumulate financial resources, maybe in 2 years we start doing something. And then as to how fast we make improvements is all about dollars.
And how many years before the state of Indiana steps in on the Main Street project?
Main Street project is scheduled for FY '22. So start in June of '22 and
Okay,
or July of '23, 2 years out.
thank you.
I mean, I just have one small comment in that I've seen a lot of residential complaints about stormwater and water sitting in yards, water sitting on the roads. And if everyone is being taxed to fix these issues, they're all gonna want their issues fixed. So, I mean, I'm good for the city, but I think there's definitely gonna need to be some
Education.
It's a big,
standards
issue.
Something set, some standards set, some expectations set for residents who are now receiving this tax, and they're all gonna have issues.
The big
Probably
issue.
you compare it to our PASER rating about how we choose what streets we do, right? So we go through every 2 years and literally
You score every block of every street.
to determine who gets, what streets get paid and in what ranking. And I think part of our proposal from Christopher Berg is to help us establish at least a couple of years' worth of projects that have high demand.
And let me assure you that we can identify more need than we're gonna generate revenue for the first couple of years.
And this really is only the first step. I mean, so we're not there yet. I mean, we need to get some data first, some information first, and then it's a decision that's gonna take some conversation. Obviously, it's gotta be something that council's gonna have to weigh in on.
The alternative is to do what we're doing now, which is not much. And the longer we delay doing something, the worse the problems are likely to get.
Any other questions or comments? If not, Ron and I think most of the city would appreciate a motion to move forward with hiring Christopher Berg using wastewater funds to study the need for a stormwater utility.
Motion.
Motion's been made by Jamie, seconded by Dee. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those are opposed. Okay. Thank you. Okay, up next we have Josh Tressler. He's been here with us before. Of course, he is our IT guy with the city-county split public safety. We're part of a larger conversation that's gotten us to this point about infrastructure and the needs to up those at our dispatch facility, which serves as the hub for all of our facilities. So is that a good enough explanation to get you started, Josh?
Yeah, that's great, thank you. the information that I just handed out, I apologize, it's a little confusing. It's part of a PDF and part of a PowerPoint, so I just printed the relevant slides for you guys. What we're doing currently for the city and county government entities, we have internet connections with ETC here in Greensburg, and we have kind of a hodgepodge of some locations have, you know, internet connection per office, some have one per building, some have multiple per building, and on the back end, I manage equipment in all the city county buildings to allow for information sharing between them as well as getting out to the internet. And what we're looking to do is kind of consolidate our infrastructure and also add some reliability and redundancy to that. So as it stands today, we've been pretty fortunate with ETC. You know, we've not had any issues of prolonged outages for them as a company, but we have some complexity issues of dealing with, you know, if we have a failure at one location, making changes under the covers to try to get that traffic to go to another location to keep them in service. So what we're looking to do is to actually add another internet connection with another provider and upgrade our current ETC internet. So we would have 2 internet connections for both the city and the county entities to use as one. One would be with one provider in the communications facility. The other would be with another